All right, everyone, we are back for our third and final discussion. This is going to be a much shorter discussion in our American Heresy series. And in the American Heresy series, we're basically talking about really unique, made in America kind of religions that have come out of the last 150 years or so. We started with Mormonism, then went to Jehovah's Witnesses, which really it's Russellite theology, Charles Taze Russell. And now we're going to talk very quickly about the Word of Faith movement, as I call it, Christian magic. Okay, and essentially what this movement comes from is it's rooted, and its origination is from the New England era of transcendentalism, New Thought philosophy, really New Age, what we would understand today more as New Age thinking, theosophy, things like this, through the teachings and thought of a very kind of unique period of the late 19th century. Specifically, his name was Phineas Quimby, okay? And Phineas Quimby died in 1866, but in his short 64 years of life, he affected four or five major thinkers in these kinds of aberrant cultic movements, one of which was Mary Baker Patterson Eddy, the founder of the mind cult known as the Christian Science movement. Of course, he was have said to have healed her, actually. Of course, he also worked with John Lake, who I don't know if he coined the term little gods, but he promoted the term little gods, that humans are little gods, okay? Also, William Marion Branham, who is a well-known faith healer from the early 19th to mid-19th century, 20th century, sorry about that. And of course, had a huge influence on Kenneth Hagin, and was really known as a revivalist slash faith healer. And then I forgot to mention John Lake. He, of course, worked with Gordon Lindsay, who founded Voice of Healing Ministry as well. So there's all this kind of interconnection to this as well. And then, of course, most for our purposes, one of the most important people that Quimby affected was E.W. Kenyon. And E.W. Kenyon died 1948, but this man's the one who coined the term word of faith and came up with what's called positive confessional, kind of positive confessionism or positive confessional theology, where essentially is, you think it, you need it, you say it, it's true kind of thing, okay? And he gets this from a wildly out of context reading of Romans 10, verse 8, where it says, is not the word on your mouth and in your heart, this word of faith that we proclaim, okay? So it has a huge effect, of course, on our present discussion of the word of faith, because Kenyon affects Kenneth Hagin, Kenneth Copeland, Charlie Capps, and Fred Price. And these are like the first generation of these word of faith teachers, okay, and their aberrant doctrines and they're really their damning doctrines, okay. So E.W. Kenyon's kind of connected again back to Phineas Quimby, who has this dubious family tree with Mary Baker Eddy, John Lake, William Branham, and others, and his thought is really tied up with the occult, spiritism, hypnotism, parapsychology, pop psychology, that kind of gets blended into what we would probably call today more as a New Age kind of philosophy, okay? So what's the doctrine of the Word of Faith? Again, this E.W. Kenyon specifically, that kind of gives way to this first wave of Word of Faith teachers and faith healers. Again, Kenneth Hagin, Kenneth Copeland, Charlie Capps, Fred Price, and a few others back in that generation that give way to we would call the second wave, which is going to be Creflo Dollar, Joyce Meyer, T.D. Jakes, Joel Osteen, and those. So it's just kind of a connected, though Joel Osteen is more well known for the prosperity gospel, along with Creflo Dollar, which is an iteration of the Word of Faith movement. It's connected, it's very connected, but they're not exactly the same thing. The prosperity gospel is less metaphysical. There's less focus on the divinization of the person, okay? There's more focus just on materialism and consumerism, okay? So the second generation just kind of is really what gave way more to the prosperity movement, though there's deep connections to the Word of Faith movement, okay? So what are their doctrines? I'll be succinct about this because there's really not a lot to it. It's not a really complex web of theology or something like that. It's not like Mormonism or Jehovah's Witnesses or something like that. It's much less. There's much less to go off of in a lot of ways. There's a lot of writings, but there's just, it's more simplified. First, God is essentially this idolatrous creation of human pride and arrogance. God is just a bigger version of you. He's a cosmic you. And he created you, and you share his essence, which is complete heresy, because God is the creator and we are the creation. We don't share his ontology. That's the metaphysical word we'd use. We don't share his essence, okay? He creates us in his image, Christianity teaches. But we are not little gods, which is what they teach about man. That man is basically just like humans create humans. God creates little gods. No, absolutely not. That's heresy. But God is simply a bigger version of you. You're a smaller version of him. And so their doctrine is essentially very simplistic in that way. Really even bigger doctrine for them, the biggest doctrine for them is their doctrine of faith. And you need to understand this. What they mean by faith and what we mean by faith have nothing to do with each other, okay? What they mean by faith is a confession, an agreement of what they want, something internal that they desire, that they wish for, that they have, whether it's a need or a want. They agree with that need or want, and they profess that. They confess that. That's what they mean by faith. That's not what historical Christianity means at all by faith, but that's what they mean by faith. And then therefore, they also believe that faith is also to be in line with laws of prosperity. Okay, health, wealth, success. Okay, so there's laws of prosperity that go with this doctrine of faith that is a positive confession of what someone wants. All right. So basically, the Bible for them is a faith formula. All right. I put down here on my notes that it's basically just a magic book of self-serving incantations. All right. The Bible for them is just a self-serving book of promises that God made that are basically kind of laws of the universe that you can just tap into by saying them. All right. Self-serving incantations. Christian magic has nothing to do with Christianity. It's more has to do with New Age occultism than it does with historic Christianity. So I listed a few books that were put out in the 70s and 80s by the Word of Faith teachers, just to give you a flavor, and then we'll finish up with a response, okay? God's Will is Prosperity, Gloria Copeland from late 1970s. Kenneth Copeland's aptly titled The Force of Faith. You're not sure if you're in a Star Wars movie or not, right? It's like faith is not a force, but that's what he calls it, the force of faith. All right. Charlie Capps, this is very telling. How to have faith in your faith is his book title. Faith in your faith. See, it's not faith in God, it's faith in you. It's faith in your faith. See? And then, of course, Robert Tilton. Hard to not think of the farting preacher here, the famous farting preacher, but Robert Tilton, yes, the farting preacher. His 1980 book titled God's Laws of Success. God's law. No, not God's law. God's laws of success. So, a little taste of their doctrine in those books, okay? How should we respond? Well, first, you need to understand that cults are well known for always using Christian language, but in a different meaning. So God, man, faith, completely different meanings, okay, from historic Christianity. No relationship, okay, at all. Jesus, not the Jesus of the Bible, the Jesus of their imagination, okay? So understand that first. What they mean by these words, we do not mean by these words, and vice versa, okay? Secondly, their view of God is just a cosmic version of themselves, and man had apparently no effect from Adam's fall in Genesis 3. So, therefore, the issue for them is not overcoming sin. The issue for them is realizing your potential, right? The issue for them is gaining secret knowledge. So there's a incipient Gnosticism, that secret knowledge cult, that doesn't really have one nexus per se in the early centuries of Christianity, but was a very promoted teaching in the church that had to be resisted. So you can see this specifically in the book of Colossians, somewhat in Hebrews, but specifically in 1 John. So Gnosticism being this idea that body and matter are separate, matter is evil, the spirit is good, sin is not the issue, knowledge is the issue, so the goal is to gain more knowledge. So you see kind of Gnosticism inside of this word of faith teaching as well. So Gnosticism is also in there, and it's, of course, a heresy, right? We have plenty of knowledge. The issue is not knowledge. We have enough knowledge that we're inexcusable for God, therefore we're condemned, okay? So the issue is not knowledge. The issue is obedience for Christianity, okay? That's why we believe in grace, all right? Next, they believe that faith is an acquired skill set, as if it's like, a ninja move that you have, okay? Faith is not an acquired skill. Faith is a gift from God. We see this in Ephesians 2, 8 through 9. It's not of yourself. It's a gift from God, so that no one would boast. This is a verse that would destroy their entire thinking. Ephesians 2, 8, and 9, okay? This passage completely flies in the face of everything that they believe in, okay? So faith is not an acquired skill. It's a gift from God. And then again, you're going to see from their teachings and their books and their preachings and their sermons and all these things, there's a complete focus on faith only. Because faith for them is the power to unlock these laws in the universe. Faith for them is the way to realize their potential and to realize themselves. Faith for them is a way to positively confess what they want. That is not what faith means. And in fact, Christianity is not really focused on faith. Christianity is really focused ultimately on love. Love is the greatest ethic in Christianity. Love is who God is. 1 John 4, 8. Love is the focus. In love that he gave himself for us. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us. Right? Romans 5, 6 through 8. In love, he demonstrated his love to us, right? By dying for us, right? While we were yet sinners, he died for us. So love is the greatest ethic. Paul says faith, hope, and love will remain. Of the greatest is love. So faith is not the great ethic. Faith is not really the focus even as much in Christianity as love is. Galatians 5, 6 says, this is what matters, faith working in love. So faith is supposed to kind of, in many senses, give way to love. It's supposed to mature into love, okay? Faith is not love, but faith is to mature into love. And love is the greater virtue, okay? And then lastly, and we see this from Jude, verses 8 through 13 and on, is that false prophets in Christianity are not just to be avoided. They're not simply just to be not listened to. They're to be resisted. They're to be rebuked. And they are to be uprooted, okay? We are not to stand for wolves in sheep's clothing or wolves in the congregation, okay? We are to bring them on charges. We are to excommunicate them. Titus 1 says to watch your life and doctrine, okay? The teaching matters, all right? So false teachers are not just to be, well, let's not listen to them. They're a little off. They're to be resisted, rebuked, and they're to be uprooted and removed from the church, okay? So we should assess the danger and take action is what I'm trying to say. And it's really important for us to understand this, that, and I'll just give a short personal story about this, but growing up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, most people I knew that were religious had some relationship to the Word of faith a lot of times, and many were full-blown into it. These are damning doctrines, folks. These are damning doctrines. This is not the same God of the Bible. This is not the Jesus of the Scriptures. Humans have no sin problem in their view. The goal is to get more knowledge and to use that knowledge to win things for yourself. This is completely antithetical to historic Christianity. These are damning doctrines. These are doctrines that send people to hell, okay? So, as I talk to people in these backgrounds, they are completely indoctrinated. They look at the world in means of success based upon health, wealth, and prosperity. We have to resist them, folks. We can't simply say you're off a little bit. They must be resisted because Jude specifically, and 2 Peter and other places, show that the teachings of these false prophets and false teachers, it's rooted in pride. It's rooted in sensuality. It's wolves in sheep's clothing. They are looking to shear the sheep. They are looking to fleece the flock. okay? They're not looking just to take for themselves. They're looking to take from others to take for themselves. So thus we must resist, rebuke, uproot them, and remove them from the church. And we must also try to win people from these, it's a cultic thought pattern. We must win these people from these personality cults by bringing the light into the darkness. So I hope that helps a little bit. Again, this is just to kind of get you a little window into this in this American Heresy series. And I hope it helps you a little bit as you think through and discern. Remember, the Word of God uses words in a certain way. Cults will use the same words but with different meanings. So be careful as you engage with stuff like this. They're working with a different lexicon. Okay? All right. Till next time.